Yeah, we perhaps as a grounded, because there are languages that will be used by other people, but as a grounded pro-poor and conscious activist who's a very militant, transformation champion. By the way, one would be bothered by many, amongst other things, the issues of service delivery. These are issues that will reduce us, amongst other things, to inhuman, so to speak. You can check, amongst other things, the issue of your illegal dumpings that are all around. Even in this community, when it is raining very heavily, you will have your drains blocked, and you have now your rain running on the streets, getting into people's houses, and it becomes quite disastrous because there are drains that are actually not maintained to move around. You see, the people who are walking around, many of them, you find they just become a reflection of poverty, in particular your hunger. So these are things, as very grounded, activists, those conscious, by the way. These are things that will give one insomnia and the rest of things, especially the issue of hunger. So there is also complete lack of accountability by authorities, who then think that once we actually elect them, they become kings and queens. They'll then preside over the very same constituents that actually put them in the office. As they'll treat them as their own subjects. No accountability, no nothing. And we as a society as well, and South Africans in particular, blacks and Africans in particular, we have allowed ourselves to be very kind of gullible, if you like, gullible to an extent that we will be very oblivious of things that are actually around us, that are surrounding us, wrong as they may be. And of course, we're so gullible that what we have hidden behind, as Africans, we've hidden behind alcoholism, the toxicity around your alcoholism, that will make us forget that we have a country to actually take care of. It's quite worrying. I mean, namhlanje Friday, you can go around and check the dominance of Africans, as Africans, into these liquor outlets and your clubs and so on. But yet here, we wake up tomorrow, or when we are sober, when we wake up, all that we do is to lash and complain, but we are not necessarily participating in ensuring that at least there are services in our communities. We try by all means. We are not. So that is a high rate of apathy that we're actually complaining. So those are things that are actually worrying, which will need all of us collectively to come together, defeat first the culture of apathy, and reduce or divorce the black nation, particularly Africans, from being into much into alcoholism and so forth. So those are things, those are struggles that we need to really engage on. There's a bigger struggle out there, and it needs all of us. Otherwise, one day we'll wake up without the country. That is, by the way, why we are seated in a situation that we are seated in. Remember, this thing of leadership in the country, political leadership, I mean, is a scam. Let's face it. What we have by the way, in our country, is leaderpreneurship, not necessarily your leadership. What we're going through now is testimony to that. What do I mean? There's an arrangement which is actually called in the country. It's done by leaderpreneurship. An arrangement called the Government of National Unity. Those who are outside, who are excluded at the level of what we usually call political leadership, those are excluded. They are crying foul, as if, and labeling and characterizing this GNU thing as a betrayal. It is simply because they were not invited, over dinner. Those who were not invited over dinner would label it. And by the way, those who were invited and came together, they know that that arrangement is never about South Africa. It's never about poor South Africans. It's about the leaderpreneurship. This is just a business arrangement to ensure that at least friends, they benefit over the coffers. They all preside over the coffers of our government. Nothing. It's a complete, in fact, by its current design, the concept would not have been a problem, but then by its current form and design, the current GNU design, it's a total misrepresentation of the aspirations of the poor South Africans. That is the reality. Once it includes, as we've said earlier on, once it includes your oppressors who are regrouping in little corners, I always argue that we have our kids, we have our nephews, nieces who are attending schools with white kids, but then after matric, the high school level, after matric, once they graduate from the high school, we don't know where the white kids disappear, but we have our own kids who are with them on trains, who are with them on buses, on taxis, on taxifiers, but we don't see their counterparts in the form of your white kids. So we're saying there is a mobilization and regrouping by them, but then they are enabled by our leaderpreneurship, which we have often called leadership. So we just need to come together, establish service delivery, a very combat service delivery machinery to at least work on ourselves, so that also that service delivery machinery is actually able to identify initiatives, so that we are not necessarily entirely as well dependent on government. Bring together your business sector, bring together your private sector, your authorities. That means that your government of authorities, particularly those that you actually always vote for, and all the stakeholders to bring together and see how do we then now collaboratively and cooperatively develop our communities, deal with issues of service delivery. But in the main, the question of make sure that we defeat and address the issue that has been there, which has become the culture, by the way, the issue of lack of accountability by authorities and everyone. In that way, we shall have defeated the apartheid. So that is our call. Those are concerns that one would really have in our country, that bring one sleepless nights in the form of insomnia and so on, as a grounded activist who's very consciously and pro-poor. Those who care to or those who are real patriots and who care to understand their surroundings, in particular about their country. Lack of apathy, in fact, rather apathy on its own, meaning which your lack of enthusiasm to participate in your community in various ways, especially towards the development of your community. You are then, by so doing, one is actually surrendering their power, or his or her power, to the authorities. Then that informs now loss of interest by in fact, you are giving this person a blank check, the authorities, to do as they actually please. If you care to then rate, you go and check currently the statistics in our country in as far as accountability is concerned. You go to your global accountability index, you find out there that the rate of accountability in our country is just an average. It's far below. It's far below your many countries. That means that there is no accountability, and it means that we are not. Of course, if you compare it your recent ones, if you compare it perhaps to a period before 2016, 2015. Yes, it's a little bit better, but that it remains an average. So it's not proper that we will be here as South Africans who kind of care, because we have too much politics, especially when we are intoxicated. There are too much politics. Now, you have authorities that are running on their own there. We don't attend public meetings. We don't care if public meetings actually sit. There's something that will be called IDP at a local, because the closest sphere of government we have to us, people, the closest sphere to us would be local government. And you find out that the level of participation in the community, in as far as really deciding what is the best for the community through what is called integrated development plan by municipality, it's not there. There's no interest, there's no participation by majority as the resident. In that way, now we are then simply saying we are converting the local authorities, we are converting the leader, that what's supposed to be leadership, the elected leadership for that matter. We are in that way converting them to some kings and queens, and who are not accountable, but who are just accountable to their families. And when things are done, when we have to come and do damage control, ours is to, we have this culture of always throwing insults from the distance, of howling, and there is nothing that we actually do. So it's dangerous of us not to hold people accountable. Like for instance, the last local government elections, as I'm emphatically saying, the closest sphere of government to us, the communities, and all of us, will be the wards and branches and so on, is local government. Now, the last time we last went to elections in this country in 2021, nobody cares to understand, and we are going for elections again in 2026, but we don't care to understand what is it that has been done by those that were actually elected as well between your 2021 and now 2025, in the eve of your next local government elections, your 2026. We don't care. But hence we are saying that we'll also need a machinery for accountability and service delivery. We should be there now, all out, saying, crying or nagging those that were elected into offices. We should be nagging them to say we want public meetings. We want to understand, for purposes of accountability, we want to understand what is it that have been done prior. What were the issues? What was committed on prior 2021, and how far? What is the progress? We get progress report in this term of the office. What is it that those that we entrusted with power have actually done? So that is part of accountability. But now we will wait. Others don't even know when it is elections. Others wake up, they don't know who is elected in their community. So that is the level of apathy that we need to defeat. And now it leads directly to lack of accountability by those who are supposed to be actually accounting, and we leave them running wild. They're accounting to themselves. So that is actually very dangerous, something that we need to think about and come together as a collective to say that this is because it's in the best interest. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to achieve. This is where we want to be as communities, respectively. And that is in the best interest of our country. Let me just quickly refer. The if as starting with the individual, you are not conscious, and yours is to just fight your little struggle in a corner, you'll then be affected. Like for instance, where we are, take an area like Rosettenville. Rosettenville for the longest of times has been run as a community, aggressively run by your Nigerians. They sold drugs in this community in each and every little corner in Rosettenville. You'll have drugs. They will sell drugs like they are selling some sweets, some bananas, some apples on the street, some zimbas on the street, some fags, cigarettes on the street. The way they're running this community, and they're very bully. Now, you then had a situation, because where there's drugs, you'll find your prostitutes. So this is an area then that was infested for the longest of time, which was infested with a lot of drugs, prosecutions, brothels. In each and every corner there will be a brothel run by the Nigerians. Up until that happened, up until we stood up in 2017. And what we said, enough is enough. This is the community now in relation to the issue of your linked to the issue of or connected to the issue of service delivery, the impact of service delivery. Mind you, these are young people, those who are merchandisers of these Nigerians, South Africans, young South Africans. Some are still at school, some are drop out at schools, and the bad and the worst part of it is that many of them will then turn into junkies, what we'll call now label as nyaupes. They'll drop out of school because now they can make money through selling drugs. But these drugs are being sold again to the young people of this country, in particular in the community that I'm talking about, your Rosettenville. Now, where have been the law enforcement agents, which is part of service delivery? I'm saying to you, you'll have here your SAPS, you have your Johannesburg Metropolitan Police, which is what we call JMPD, and I recall, somewhere towards your after or prior your 2016 elections, in Johannesburg alone, you'll have a deployment of your JMPD vehicles in each community. They will call that initiative 10+1, and so on. They will be patrolling in each community. But then now we are here we are saying on the parallel of that, you'll have Nigerians who are publicly selling drugs, who are owning, for that matter, prosecutors. The prosecutors are South Africans, young South African girls. The drug consumers and sellers are young South African boys who have become also a security and spies for the very same. These are young people, South African young people. Now, that then simply means that their future had been collapsed completely. They had no future. It has been actually destroyed by your Nigerians. Now, you report to police, and at the time we're very clear with that, and still the case, by the way. At the time, you'll have police who are in the payroll of and we made it clear that part, even at the time, who are in the payroll of your Nigeria. That is service delivery. So service delivery has been compromised because of poverty. Now, poverty in which way? These ones who are, will be your prostitutes, your boys who are selling drugs, who are consuming drugs. They had been taken advantage, they had been exploited, or their situation had been exploited by those Nigerians who will be very moneyed. Now, then that extended to the police, now who are not earning as much, by the way, who will then be exploited as well. So the whole country is actually collapsed. There's no law enforcement agent because it's been bought, exploited because of issues of poverty. Then there's young people on the other side whose future have actually been destroyed. Then you have no country. all of that emanates, or the source of that will have been the lack of accountability. But the community actually came together. I can tell you, when I leave my house, then that was pre-2017. When I leave my house, the first person that also on the street is a prosecutor. You go to the corner somewhere, then there's a brothel. You go to another street, is prosecutor. They are all over. They were moving all over like flies. Now, because of the revolution that we would have initiated then, that says that we're putting a stop to this, and you can't fight that kind of a situation. You can't fight that kind of crime with the Bible. Unfortunately, you have to be very militant. Up until now, we unleashed militants. Now, remember, as we've said, some of us are very militant, transformation advocates and champions. This is our country, and we're born. We also fought. We're part of fighting for this country. As I've narrated earlier on, that we cut. Some of us cut our political virginity and our political teeth through the African National Congress. That was pre-1994. Now, there's nothing we can fear for after so much fights, so much very heavy and armed, enemies at the time, and you can't confront those who took advantage of that we have delivered this country, we have delivered political freedom in 1994, and therefore let's come in this country and do as we please. So the point is, we had to fight. I can tell you now, without having to go and do a research somewhere in Google, there is not a single prostitute in Rosettenville now. Those that we may perhaps say they'll be hiding little corners, one or two, but the entire community now is very clean. There's a street here in Rosettenville that is called Lawn. It has a park in the corner of your Verona. When issue of your drugs was quite rife in our community, the issue of because it escalated to issues of crime. Now, in Johannesburg South entirely, your Lawn Street in Rosettenville and your Bukwe Street were the hotspots, in particular your Lawn Street, because that's where you'll find many Nigerians there, even owning, in fact, as I've said, they were running brothels. They had hijacked properties, including a block of flats. But to mitigate, remember as well, the levels of crime are quite high in your Rosettenville, informed by the social ills that I've just actually narrated. But then when we started the revolution, which we actually coined, reclaim our community, we ensured that we put a stop. But part of the crisis that we're confronting, in Lawn Street, there will be no weekend without a dead person found in the park there, especially Portuguese and white people, because you will see white people coming from wherever they come to buy drugs there, and they find everything here. Bazothenga drugs, as drugs bazithenga kubani owners zama prosecute. So you buy drugs from this Nigerian guy, then immediately after buying drugs from the Nigerian guy, there's a prostitute that is actually waiting for you. So you consume the drugs with your prostitute here, then you buy here, then the next thing, now they take everything from you, they kill you. So it was up until, I can guarantee you now, since 2017 to date, you've never seen, there's never been a single person whom we are told is dead in those areas. Till today, even now you hardly find white people or Portuguese running around those streets, because now there are no prosecutors and the properties. Now the question will be, what then happened to the properties? We have said to you, levels of unemployment are quite high here. There is high also rate of homelessness, in particular by black poor. Now, what we'll then do, once we had evicted them from the properties, I'm saying those who are selling drugs and those who have converted those properties, neglected and abandoned properties, somewhere in 1994, because this community was, full of your Portuguese guys who have run away immediately. Want democracy in the new democratic dispensation, they'll run away, think that they'll be violent, they'll be driven to the sea, they'll be killed by black men in power and so on. Now there will be many abandoned properties which would have been hijacked by these ones. Now once we had actually evicted them in those properties that they turned into brothels. Then we put the South Africans who are unemployed or poor to go in those properties and only deal with the issues of your water and electricity, with services to pay municipality services. In all the then hijacked properties were used as brothels by Nigeria. The point is that we didn't wait for government, because here you have a government that necessarily wouldn't will take too much time, and there's a lot of bureaucracy. Now, again, we had to save our young people, because it's young people who were seriously, actually, and deeply, profoundly affected by all these societal ills. But today, we no longer have that. But of course, we will still be saying, let's come together. We want government to come and assist. Kunabantwana badlala phandle now, badlala ngama cricket, badlala ibhola. They have nowhere to go. They don't have those grounds, for kids to go and play soccer. We don't have, your combi courts here, your tennis courts, and so on, where they can go and express themselves. Now in holidays, they have to be with their parents and play on the street, and so that's how they will then be exposed to the societal ills, such as your drugs and everything else, and criminalities or criminal activities. So in short, our young people, as long as, because we owe the future to actually our young people. If you don't stand up and and participate in your community, and in when you speak of the community as well, we're meaning the entire country, because a person who's in Butterworth must be able to be conscious enough to participate, to know what is happening in the community, and make sure that there are initiatives that are actually put in place to arrest some of the thorny societal ills. Now, because they then ultimately affect the young people in this country. Many are in rehab and so on. They were affected then, so we must prevent that. We can't have crickets now. He's dependent, kudanki, inkamkam, ka kehlekazi, wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a very good sight, but we lived with that, and I immediately got into at high school level. I immediately got into matric, but his health was not necessarily the same. Though he then, at a later stage, or Buyela back Durban Deep mine, then he was retrenched. He got into Texas. He became a taxi driver, owner. In fact, he owned a few taxis, but remained a very serious activist of the ANC in Kagiso, Hlafa. And right, exactly, remember I'm saying there are these years that he actually spent confined into a, if you like, a paralysis kind of for a longest time. And that anger is really there at that time against these white people, and they retrenched him. So they confined him into a paralysis. Then he got back by grace of God, goes to work, then he is retrenched, starting some taxi business. Then they murdered him. Now they murdered him exactly when I'm doing my matric. It was somewhere in March, just around Easter's, when that happened. And I'm in matric. I'm just fresh from also initiation school that time, and I completely lost focus. Now, mine was to just wait for the year to actually end. I had nothing, like absolutely nothing now, nothing, nothing, you know. The year ends, I didn't do well at school. I failed my metric then, and I had no interest of going back. I had nothing, even the school fee I could not even afford, and the only thing that had been playing in my mind stretches from when, you know, those mining bosses there, the whites, introduced a white boy, because I was like arguing that my family life changed the day a white child was imposed and took over the role of my father. My father was forced to teach this boy and then demoted, kind of a thing. That was the beginning of the change of his life, which by extension affected us as a family. And you know, at the time I could recall that as much as I was at high school in the Eastern Cape, we had a year before that we had made an arrangement with him that as soon as I passed my matric, because I was very good with soccer, so he was a big follower, a serious follower and supporter of your Moroka Swallows. Kageso people were mostly, mainly your Swallows football club, Moroka Swallows football club supporters, and he was one of them. And we had made an arrangement that I will, the following year after matric, I will come and study here with the purpose of getting into the, you know, Moroka Swallows setup, and I had the skills. And everything else now, his death, starting from how his life changed, everything was just a mess up. And you know, that really on its own now, you know, it gave me those mixed kind of feelings, but then that entire ordeal made me a man, because that's how I actually became very strong. And I was like, the struggle must really actually continue. That really inspired me. You know, on the other hand, to an extent that one suffered so much that there's no skill, there's no education, there's no nothing. I failed my matric. I found myself looking for employment. I came here. I left, you know, Eastern Cape. Came to Johannesburg. In fact, I first went to Cape Town. You know, I stayed there for about 3 months. You know, the setup could not really befit my aspirations. You know, I left after 3 or 4 months back home to just redeem myself. Then I came back. I came to Johannesburg. You know, I arrived in Vaal, Vereeniging Sebokeng, so to speak. No, I lived there, Kwamasiza Flats, for some time. Then came to Johannesburg. You know, I enrolled in a security, you know, college just to gain some qualification, you know, so that I'm able to look for jobs. And at the time, white people were very not were extreme. The arrogance of white people was extreme. When you look for a job, they tell you right away, straight away, that go ask for a job from Mandela. And Mandela was the thing. That time was a nuisance to many of them. So we were still new to the question of transition. So it was as tough as that, but then you know, I learned to be a man from there. The long and short of it was that through my years in the industry, I didn't take time. I had to take myself to school to go and complete My matric, I did that successfully while I was still really working. I did that successfully. Immediately after my matric at GP College, because that's where I actually went to enroll to finish my matric after almost a decade hustling and fighting. But education was still more of my priority, as well as I was participating in politics. But completing that dealing with that debt, I had no option but to do it. And of course I enrolled immediately. I enrolled at UNISA, International Relations and Diplomacy, which I couldn't necessarily finish, but I did. After 1.5 years, I had my financial problems, but then I had managed to take myself to school through my hustles, after being affected, of course, by the passing on of my father, who's the only parent that I ever knew. You'll have a father and a mother, but sadly I am told that my mother passed on while I was very young. I don't know. I never got to actually know her. I think I was only exposed to her grave recently in 2019, when I first saw her grave. I've never even known that her grave was actually around and so forth. So that really made me as well, that pushed me to be the activist that I am. And of course, after years in the being a security guard, to be exact, I then founded my own company, security company, and I ran my company. I should think for a period of 7 to 10 years. But on a very second year that I was running my company, in fact, the very same year that I started my security company, I bought property, and after that, I ran it quite randomly. I was not so hands-on. I had other things, and ultimately, I bought property through that company, and I had to leave it. But then again, at no stage I became rusty, and in as far as the issue of activism, I've always been there. I mean, I've served in the South African Youth Council. South African Youth Council is an umbrella body of all youth formations in the country, irrespective of the background, religion, politics. All youth formations that exist in the country affiliate with your South African Youth Council. I was there, I should think, for almost 10 years, because the term of office would be 5 years. I was there for 2 terms, and the last term, then I was not only in the NEC but in the NWC, National Working Committee of your South African Youth Council, deployed in your KZN and Free State, and of course Limpopo. So one will have in himself a national footprint in as far as the youth development in this country is actually concerned. It's the same level of consciousness and activism and politics that will have as well seen me elected as the regional executive, Johannesburg Regional Executive Committee of South African National Civic Organization, SANCO in short, and becoming the first ever spokesperson of SANCO in Johannesburg between 20. Honestly, as I would have said before, because it's a lot of engagements that we have actively participated on. Of course, the passion for transformation, the passion for transformation and development in our communities has forever been there, and I don't sit and wait for somebody to tell me that which must be done. I always say there is a bucket here within the skull. That bucket supposed to be generating, where the brain is supposed to be generating thoughts and ideas, and that's what I do from time to time. So hence I will have as many initiatives that will seek to transform any environment in which I actually am. When I arrived in Rosettenville, it was 2000 and I should think it was 2009, and I immediately joined the youth clique, the ANC youth clique then, and after some time, or within perhaps a year, I became the secretary of the ANC youth clique. And the groundwork that I would have done at that time led to myself, such as your recruitment and so forth, led to the revival of the ANC. I stayed for a longest time without the ANC, without seeing the ANC. I was looking for the ANC up until one comrade from down where I was actually coming from, which is Yeovil, directed me, gave me a direction as to which door to actually find the ANC. And immediately after serving, after graduating from the ANC, got into the ANC as a deputy secretary. The secretariat which I participated in for almost a decade. The point, however, is my arrival in my community for the first time will have seen a link, a connection between the community and the ANC. For the very first time, there was that umbilical cord, because one had to unleash his skill. Now, a bridge was, in fact, a gap was bridged between the ANC, and ANC became indeed what's supposed to be, which is the leader of the society. So there are many struggles that we have actually fought, which one will have initiated. Today we are able to speak about job creation. We are able to speak about how we have fought and ensured that many of the community members are employed. Many of them have those who are running businesses have get jobs. Those who are homeless, many of them today they have roof over their head, and also harmonizing our community and also really bringing order into this community. This community is a kind of order, is like any other community today, something that was not there before. So that has been really a level of community engagement, participation, one actually, indulged on for. So that's where we are. So the experience that we have, and of course, that led to one also being elected as the zonal secretary of the African National Congress in Johannesburg South. The position that one presently still actually occupies, but that is not necessarily the preoccupation, because one will always argue that being a member, if there is a revolutionary in you and you become a member of the political parties, one have learned that you are then limited, you are restricted, your capacity cannot necessarily be unleashed, and you are confined into being a conformist. A conformist, you have to take instructions. There's a lot of bureaucrats. There's a lot of restriction which really incapacitate one from the nation builder that one suppose to be. And there are people who will always be allergic to change, to transformation, and they'll make any effort to ensure that the few that still has patriotism in them, within their DNA, they don't necessarily find expression. Their characters actually assassinated. They are labeled. Mud will be thrown at them. But as a leader, of course, you must develop a very thick skin. You must be brave. And I always say, you can't be in politics, you can't be an activist without a very crocodile skin, because you'll make, as a leader, you're bound to make decision, and the decision will always yield only two outcomes. One, your decision will be popular, and your decision will perhaps be unpopular. You must live with that, and you must always tell yourself that, look, I joined the struggle at a young age. I joined. I was not forced. Nobody held me by my arms and say, please join here, I will pay for your membership, and set me down to say these are material benefits of being in the struggle. And so therefore we must always at all material times be independent in thinking. We don't owe nobody for participating in the struggle. There's so much that we may have as well sacrificed, which we still continue to actually sacrifice. I'm saying here, in this community, whenever there's a problem, literally in the true meaning of whenever, we are approached almost every day, every night. You'll be approached about societal, crisis. That this one has this and that problem, this one has passed on, they need this, and this one has no electricity, please go and assist. You find yourself occupying a space of being if you like, some ward councillor, but you take it as part of leadership, because you are out there, you serve people. You took an oath within yourself that I serve people. It's a passion, but of course it's a pity that we will have your leaderpreneurship at the level, because the leaderpreneurship, the true meaning of that, or contextually, is those who will pose, project themselves as leaders, but we know that anyway they are not necessary. We can see by practice and so on that these are not really leaders. These are just people in leadership who are not necessarily for people, but for themselves. Leaders are always found on the ground, within people, revolutionaries as well, within people, resolving people's issues and attending responsively to people's issues and societal ills without being tired. That's really the leadership. A revolutionary must identify that which needs to be done, and not sit and complain about issues that are actually happening. In the process of awareness, as will be running awareness about issues that are happening, and lobbying and convincing people to see things in your own way, but it must be done in a solution-driven fashion. You can't bombard people with problems and you don't have a solution. That is why when you do other things in life, such as community development, they will even speak of your need analysis, that you do the need analysis. Of course, there's this problem that actually exists. What is it that can be done to resolve these issues? That is why we are emphatic again on the issue of us rejecting, by all means, I'm saying generally South Africans, we must reject that, a culture or a habit where we are, as South Africa's voters were reduced to mere voting cows, that we must always be fed this narrative that this particular leader, even when they are dead, when they have passed on, this particular leader did this in 1964, in 1915, and therefore because he did this, we must do. Conditions, material conditions actually evolve. What is it that the current ones are actually doing, and where do you then locate yourselves as well in the process, as opposed to being loyal to what happened in 1948 while you are here in 2024? So all we are saying is that let's also depend on ourselves. Let's navigate ourselves out of this situation. Remember, all of us, there's an agreement that the leaders were actually there, 1913, 1912, and before. The struggle that they fought was that of political 1994 to current. It should be incumbent upon ourselves on how to then deal with the current struggle, such as economic freedom struggle. It's not a theory. It's not, and it shouldn't be a slogan. It's very unfortunate that there are questions that we don't necessarily ask because we're scared of asking those questions. Because we are always nursing proximity to leaderpreneurship. We are nursing our proximity. Everybody wants to be closer to the authorities. Instead of some of us challenge the establishment. Some of us are known disruptors of comfort. We disrupt comfort zones. It doesn't matter what it takes us to disrupt the comfort zones. We didn't join this thing to be loyal to individuals. So hence we continue to call all of us really to come together, do away with some of the habits and do things moving forward, do things against the order of things, really, for us to really see the kind of South Africa that we actually want, the kind of South Africa that we dream for, the kind of South Africa that we pride ourselves with. Currently, it's all men for and by himself. That's what is happening at the level of what is so-called leadership. Go to the mushrooming of really political parties, because now the political discourse has actually become economic, open economic opportunities for all. Everyone wants to establish his or her little thing in the corner to go contest into that space and enter the space. Where does that leave all of us, and what is it that we're actually doing about those things? So really, in short, we must begin to really take matters into our own hands. People must account and so forth.
Okay. Ngicela sirepeat le accountability ne. Imali.
Budgets that are meant to really transform the previous disadvantaged communities, and generally all communities, in particular black and Africans in majority. Those communities that are dominant of Africans must reject anything now that seeks to really demean, belittle us, as voters, as the electorate. We're in majority again in this country. Also by population, of course, we remain in majority in our country, which then means that we are the ones who really go all out, raining, sunshine, cold, but then we'll ensure that we really participate, in the democratic processes of this country, in deciding who should then govern us. Now, we then come back. We expect that the services meant for us will be actually delivered to us, but we are often told about, the funds that will have been mischanneled. It's happening almost in all at all spheres of government. The return of the budgets to treasury, the budget that will have been meant, at all levels, that will have been meant for our service. So the service delivery is very key, really. If we have to go to elections, even if we're to be told that elections have been brought forward, the 2026 elections will be now in 2025. What yardstick are we going to use to measure the success of the previous term? There's no other yardstick. We are going to benchmark our aspirations against the achievements of the authorities in this term and the term before that, this term of 2021 to 2026. That means that we have to look at the question of service delivery, and the service delivery for us cannot be reduced to basic service delivery, as it were, like your water, sanitation, and your electricity, and we say no, we have these three, and therefore we are content. No, the issues, the initiatives. What initiatives have been brought forward in this term of office? What is the rate of unemployment in this term compared to your years before 2021? Those are discussions that we must actually have. It's a lot of things. The investments. You go to areas such as your Butterworth. You have a Butterworth that used to be a very industrial or industrial area, and today is something else. And we are in a country where you have people, individuals, who are called leadership, the leadership that we are talking about, who are allegedly, who are in fact allegedly billionaires, and they are still leading us. We don't know where they actually invest their billions and so on, not to speak of the politics of other allegations generally by those who preside over ourselves. So the point is that the issue of service delivery is one area that we must never actually compromise on. People pay taxes. We continue to pay taxes, and we must approach that dialogue, that topic, with no apology. Today we are informed that there is going to be a national dialogue in our country about our affairs. But the question is, you had here a basic guiding document. What affairs are we going to speak about now? What does that mean? We mandated people. When parties, when all parties were out campaigning, even now, recently, towards the 2024, 29 of May 2024 general elections. They had they had your manifestos. They knew our affairs because the manifesto will be sourced from the understanding of the dynamics of the country, the challenges of our country, and out of that they develop your manifestos. But then today we're told that there must be a national dialogue. What about the mandate that we'll have given? And quite interestingly, the manifesto again will be dominated by the elite. That class, the middle class as well, and so on, and the peasants shall not be there. So you have the elite deciding out of the blue that there must be a dialogue, a national dialogue, to discuss issues thorny issues about our country. I mean, the last time we checked, we collectively identified triple challenges: poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And when we mandate people with power, political power, state power, ours is to say, use the state power as a vehicle to address these triple challenges. There is nothing beyond that. Issues of crime, they all emanate from these three triple challenges, issues of corruption and so forth.